Welcome to Tough Lies, the Golfers Podcast with Colin McDougall and Richard Zokol.
Welcome, everybody. Another episode of Tough Lies, the Golfers Podcast. Colin McDougall here with my good friend and partner in golfing crime, Richard Zokol. How are you, Richard?
I'm good, Colin. Good to be with you. Lots to talk about on the Truist. What's a Truist? Do we know?
I was going to ask you.
What the hell is a Truist?
Is that like a purist who must also tell the truth? I don't know.
So I guess it's a bank.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because they always tell the truth. Yeah. Sorry. So yes, indeed, lots to talk about. Sort of headlines for this week. Reitan wins at Quail Hollow there, one of the favorite courses I think for a lot of players. One of the signature events. Rory has a little bit of driver ups and downs, let's call it.
Yeah.
Alex Fitzpatrick, newly minted PGA Tour player, has a wonderful week, ups and downs, and we'll talk about that. Some interesting notes on the other tours in terms of who won. I think some interesting names there. Mr. Rolap appeared on ESPN and on the Rich Eisen show, and I want to unpack a couple of the comments that he brought up, which I thought were very interesting. The social media changes included within that is the social media changes on the PGA Tour,
right? And
a look ahead to Ronimink and the PGA Championship this coming week. Make sure to follow, like, subscribe. Tough Lies Podcast.transistor.fm at Tough Lies Podcast on Instagram. Yeah, so let's get into it. So the Truist Championship, Quail Hollow, which Rory has historically done really well at, but this week, Mr. Reitan, I keep on saying Reitan, but it's Reitan the way they've been pronouncing it. He gets into the field after some withdrawals from other players, which I thought was interesting, and totally capitalizes. He ends up winning decidedly on the last hole by 2, and fends off the charge from Rickie Fowler. So where do you want to start with Mr. Reitan's
well, let's start with this. Yeah, this week on the PGA Tour, the Truist Championship at one of the all-time great golf courses in the States, Quail Hollow. I've never played Quail Hollow. When I was on tour, prior to me getting on tour in the early 80s and the 70s, it was always the Kemper Open at Quail Hollow, and then they stopped it. We'd go up to Congressional to play the Kemper Open for couple of decades, and now they're back at it, so I've never really gotten to know it. But we do know it's a big-time major championship type golf course. Yeah. And it's one that Rory constantly plays well at in the past, but that came to an abrupt halt in the third round.
Yeah.
Living and dying by the driver, and I'm kind of the first 2 rounds of at Quail Hollow. I'm looking at it, he's taking it over these trees. He's hitting his apex at these, and he's landing in these small areas, and I'm just going, oh my God! As good as that shot is, it's just, is it wise to take it on? But as we know, and as we've discussed, Rory lives and dies with the driver. It's just it's a strategy. You know, he got through Augusta with it. We felt that he got lucky with it, but that's the way it was. And his third round 75 took way too many bogeys, and it caught up with him. Scotty rested this past week, and I think that's something that's going to probably yield him keep him in good stead. Players are getting exhausted because they've been playing in these big tournaments right since Augusta. Cameron Young, he finally showed some poor play, and it could be because of exhaustion. He shot 74 in the final round, which is unlike Cameron Young. Including a 4-putt. Did you notice that? Yeah. So it begs the question, is he spent? Does he have any gas going into the PGA Championship? Rickie Fowler, how about this? He's doing all the heavy lifting and significantly making great improvements. And improving in the last few holes, getting all that heavy lifting done by parring 17, the par 3 on Sunday. And in that situation, it looked as though he was going to win. And then on the final hole, this beautiful driver on the left side, and he misses it left of the pin. That is a no-no. That shot in that moment, because we didn't know that Reitan was going to get to 50 and under. That shot right there in that situation, he did not perform well, and it looked as though it cost him significantly. Then we would need to we'll look at Alex Fitzpatrick, who had to walk the gauntlet, and that'll be the mind track moment when we talk about what is walking the gauntlet, what does it mean, and how does it look, and this is the final straw where people you break through that veil and get to be able get to win on the PGA Tour.
I was as I was watching, one of the things I wanted to ask you about is sort of situation based, which is to say, Rickie Fowler's on a run. He's multiple groups in front of the leaders, and he's having a very good day. He gets to 18, and I wonder in that moment whether he still feels like he needs to make birdie on 18 in order to sort of have a chance at winning, and perhaps presses his luck on that approach shot and goes after the target perhaps more than in retrospect he may have wished he did, because hanging in at 14, you never know what that additional pressure does to Reitan coming in. It's his first time contending on the PGA Tour. I mean, contending to win, I should say. He came second once.
In that situation, in that moment, it looked as though 14 was going to be the number. Rickie, all he had to do was hit it on the green and then post that number, and it changes the situation. The situation changes constantly.
Right.
And the thing is too is so when Rickie's on that in the fairway on the 18th hole, that heavy lifting is over. If he thinks I need to make birdie, then that's a poor thought.
Right.
Because he's projecting forward to what may or may not happen, and that'll cause pressure and disrupt your ability to execute the shot. Yeah. So where the mental discipline is because that number, when you say I need to make birdie, that's an extrinsic result. That's what builds the pressure, and perhaps he thought that, and he executed a poor shot. Anything that was left of the pin was a poor shot.
Right.
He had to keep it right of the pin and two putt. He's brilliant putting. It was just fantastic. So that could be, but he needs to, if he has the cleanest mindset, he's in there. He has to assess that shot, whatever the club is, and then where his target line is, and it's going to be 10 yards right of the pin and to the middle of the green, and then execute that shot. Yeah. And if he does that, then you detach from the result. If he's got that thought, I need to make birdie, that's a big problem.
Right. And in tandem with that, sort of tying that into the situation, the other aspect in that moment to me was the role of the caddy in the selection of that shot, which is to say, the caddy's probably as aware or more perhaps of sort of the standing. And is it incumbent on the caddy to sort of say, here's your target, hit it there? And
it depends. It depends. It depends on your relationship with your caddy and how you defined duties of the caddy and the player. Right. So if the player says, okay, it's your job to assess the shot and I'm going to execute it like a scout sniper situation in the military, then, first of all, I never had my caddy determined to tell me where to hit the shot. Mm-hmm. There isn't a caddy in the world that, in my mind, knows better than I in this situation.
Okay.
So I don't put that duty on the player. I put it on myself. So I go, okay, in this situation, I need to make par.
Right.
And if you make birdie, we talk about needing to make par. We want to get that out of our head. So the assessment is, this is the club, this is the shot, the pin is back left. I want to hit it to the middle right type of thing, and I'm going to use this club, call it a 7-iron. And then my goal is to execute this shot right here, right now, to the best of my ability. And hopefully this is the thing that allows you to execute those shots. You got to condition yourself in these moments because they're very difficult moments. And if you don't have stable confidence in this shot, you're gonna pull it. You're gonna whatever, like he did, got it left of the hole, and it inevitably leads to a shot lost event on that hole, and which in his mind in that moment he lost the tournament.
Yeah, I'm sure. So I wanted to also one interesting side note. Reitan apparently in 2022 was strongly considering sort of a YouTube career in golf, and sort of had gone down the road talking to production companies and was sort of strongly considering that route. So I think we're all a beneficiary of him sticking to his guns and playing extremely well. And I think if he's got that sort of character, my guess is we're going to see a lot more in terms of the future of the way PGA Tour events are going to tell their stories, and he's going to be somebody to watch looking on the horizon. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, in that situation, that often happens in golf, particularly at the professional level, because people bring this an unhealthy perspective, so it's not going well. So therefore, I think I'm less of my identity there, and he had to take a sabbatical. He took 8 months off. Right. And then he had to figure out, he had to change his perspective.
Right.
And so that's the key. It's not your golf swing, it's his perspective. He saw that this was, let's call it, golf insanity. It wasn't getting the progress he wanted. He went away. It's the same thing with what's the guy on made the Ryder Cup team this past year who became a insurance salesman for.
Yeah.
So
Ben
he got
Griffin,
his
right?
Griffin. Thank you.
Yeah.
They get your perspective right. So that's what he did, and quite often, in reality, they find out that it's a lot easier on the PGA Tour in professional golf than it is out in the real world when you have no skills developed. So that's the discovery, and if it's like a shit, when you're on the PGA Tour, if you're good enough to make the PGA Tour, you're good enough to win, and all you got to do is have a proper perspective to go ahead and take it.
Yes,
So that's what I think he did.
Yeah, I think so. One of the through lines I want to talk about, and maybe we'll bring it back in the Mind Track moment, but one of the through lines this week in watching the interviews, and I think I want to tie it to some other aspects, like some other results on tours. Is this notion of self-belief, and both Fitzpatrick brothers and Reitan, all when asked sort of like, what's the deal, or how are you playing so well, they all point to this element of strong self-belief. And I was thinking about you when they said it, because to me it's so critical that you have to be the first and foremost in your mind of the belief that you can prevail.
Yes, and again, this is going to come back to, having the right perspective. So quite often there's some things that like if you take all the people, we're going to get into this concept called walking the gauntlet. Let's jump there right now. So those who are, so let's put Reitan or Alex Fitzpatrick. They believe. Alex Fitzpatrick shoots 64 in the third round. He takes a lead into the final round because of his confidence, stable confidence he got from that day. He was having fun. Shots were easy. Yeah. He was, high-fiving people on the golf course. He shoots 64. Of course, he believes he can win. He just, he's at that point. But because he hasn't, he still has to walk the gauntlet. And walking the gauntlet is being in contention, playing well enough in the first 3 rounds to get yourself in contention. Either you're going to play in the final group or second to last group or third to last, but you are in contention. So you're playing well against the best players in the world who are also playing well.
Yes.
And so if you want to win, you have to believe that you, in that moment on the last 18 holes, that you have to perform better than all the rest of the guys that are walking the gauntlet, who are the best players in the world, and perform which yields the lowest number compared to anyone else. Shooting 74 like Alex did in the final isn't going to get it done. He had a horrible front nine, had 6 shot lost events really early, and then he caught fire. Maybe he let go or something, but then on 10, 11, 12, he had terrific shot gained events, and you're going, okay, he can do this. And then again on he dealt with the situations on 17, made a double bogey. But he's going to learn. No one goes into that moment like it's a very tough proposition to go into the final group with the best players in the world and believe you're going to project that you're going to win this thing. And it was if you in my book, I talk about how I won Milwaukee. My desperation created all this inspiration, and I had the belief that I'm going to kick this bloody door down, and there isn't anything anyone's going to be able to do about it. So I'm going to take it. So if there's things that you can get to your belief system to believe in, they can be very inspirational.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think it was interesting watching Matt Fitzpatrick talk about the power of self-belief and sort of, and mention that in the breath of what's going on with his brother.
Yes. And
I thought that's really...
It is really funny. Like back in the 80s, and this is Matt's success viewed by Alex is allowing Alex to believe that he can.
Yeah.
And, we talked about earlier the old Henry Ford saying, if you believe you can, you will. If you believe you can't, you won't.
Yes.
And so Alex is got this gift called Matthew Fitzpatrick, and he is drafting on and learning from. So Alex is in good shape. You don't always win the first time you walk the gauntlet. Usually it's the third or fourth time that you do it. But I think that's... Now, keep in mind, too, back in the late 80s, the other tandem of brothers, Kurt Byram and Tom Byram, won in the same tour, and it was the same type of motivation. When Tom Byram won, Kurt said, well, that's my brother. I got to step it up. So it changed his belief system, so he was able to win. I think it was the John Deere Classic that he won. So all these situations constantly change the player's perspective, and it's stable confidence. It can cause them to believe what's outside of their belief system and be very inspirational. But it also can collapse it too, because your belief your stable confidence can collapse at any moment too if you have the wrong perspective.
Yeah. Matt made the comment. He said, my brother's seen me hit shots, and I'm sure he's saying I can do just the same as that guy. And
exactly.
I thought it was interesting, and to that through line of the self belief and the Ford comment. We were talking briefly off air about this, but I recall there's a wonderful player from the Winnipeg area named Glenn Natchik, who is a tremendous golfer. Had a few years on the PGA Tour, and I remember talking to him. We weren't super close or anything, but we I would hear in conversation with him, he would say he was a PGA Tour player, and he would literally say, I can't putt. He'd shoot 64, and he'd say he can't putt. And you're like,
that doesn't
you're
make
on
sense.
The tour, pal. Come on.
That's what it's a dysfunctional perspective.
Yeah.
So this is why I think perspective is everything. I know Glenn, and I think he was in that category of being shy. And if you start believing that nonsense, because you're right, you're on the PGA Tour. If you believe you can, you will. Like here, and do
Paging
you learn
Corey Connors. Corey Connors.
Exactly. Like my first 10 years on the PGA Tour, and I had leads like the Canadian Open going into the final round, and I didn't believe I could win deep down.
Right.
I didn't early in my rookie. I didn't believe I could win.
Okay.
Remember when I struggled? I had to learn how to deal with each step, and then when it was time for me to win, 10 years later, I believed, and that not only believed, I felt it was mine for the taking, and anyone it's in my way is going to get knocked over hard. This
they're
is
playing
mine.
for second.
They're playing, and this is how. And when I tell the story in my book. I liken it to that story about the adrenaline in the mother when their baby was trapped under the Volkswagen. She picked it up. You don't know if those are true or not, but it's what happens is the situation changes where you create a new perspective, and that new perspective could be highly powerful or it could be destructive. You get to choose how you think, whether we know that or not, and that's what belief is all about.
Yeah, and I couldn't help, tying in some of the other results this week in the through line that we're talking about. Brandt Snedeker, he wins the sort of secondary event, PGA Tour event, the One Flight Myrtle Beach Classic. For 266s, 267s, and he wins first win in over 8 years. And to me, what an example of the power of belief. Because I think if you ask most people, they'd say, there's just no way he's going to, in this young gun's age that we're living in, he's going to, in distance age, that he would find a way to make it to the top.
Yeah, Brandt Snedeker is a very spatial person. And what I mean by that is it takes feel, his intuition.
Yeah.
He believes he's not an engineer, he's not an accountant, and he plays with his intuition. He shot 66, and he's a hell of a player. And he's the type of player that if he gets a sniff of it, he's on it. He's on it like a bloodhound. Yeah. And he knows what to do. He's comfortable within himself. He knows what works. And able to get the job done. He hasn't won since the Wyndham in 2018. That's 2,800 days. And now as perhaps him being picked as the captain of the international team on the President's Cup is taking his mind off it. But it was a wonderful win for him. He gets 2 years on the PGA Tour. It's probably going to disrupt his ability to his contribution into being the captain of the international team.
Yeah.
For the President's Cup, it'll be interesting. He's playing this week in the PGA, so he had some President's Cup responsibilities next week, but that changed because he's now going to be playing at Aronimink. But what a great win it is for him. He's one of the great guys, and he's gone through some challenging physical challenges, broken ribs while you're trying to play. I can't imagine swinging a golf club with a broken rib, but great story about Brandt.
Yeah, and congrats to Boo Weekley, wins by 3 on the senior, the Champions Tour. Stuart Sink all the way back in 5th place. I don't know what's wrong. We got to have an inquiry. I think there's clearly something wrong. I was going to say if Cam Young is, in my view, sort of looks like the NASCAR driver, Boo Weekley is the one who's tailgating in the parking lot to go to the NASCAR event. But a wonderful player himself,
Yeah.
Boo a lot of fun to watch.
He's the fisherman. He is the bass fisherman.
He's the Bass Pro Shop Open
Bass
champion.
Pro Shop, that's right. But let's get back to Reitan, Kristoffer Reitan. What a great story he was. So a lot of people may not know, but he's the second player out of Norway, Hovland being the first. So he's going to get some national attention and national responsibility. Seems like a great guy. He finished 8th on the DP World Tour last year, so he has won a couple times, and he knows how to get the job done. It got him into the top 10, that got him exempt on to the PGA Tour. And here's a guy who's taken advantage of the old when preparation meets opportunity.
Yes.
He plays well with his partner in the Zurich event because that money is official money. It put in, he got in, he advanced on the 5 people that get exemptions. He was first alternate for the Cadillac event and got in, then finished 9th. So he took advantage of that opportunity and then got into Truist and wins it. So, great stories about access to the PGA Tour. So if you're performing, you can get there. And that's the greatest incentive that you can ask for in the true form of capitalism.
Yes, I think, and we're going to unpack in a few minutes the discussion that Rolap had, and he talked about that sort of thing, which I thought was really interesting, and it actually harkens back a bit to the conversation we had with Mike Weir in terms of some of the plans for the tour next year, which I thought was interesting what I heard. So tremendous week for him. I think early prediction is he's gonna earn his way onto the European Ryder Cup team. The way he's playing,
absolutely,
the trajectory he's on, it certainly seems like that's where he's at.
And I loved how he handled the situation, and again, when I'm looking at a player who's walking the gauntlet, and believe me, when you're in that for the first time, whether it be you're by yourself, you're all exposed. If you're Alex Fitzpatrick or if you're Kristoffer Reitan, you're having to keep your like what I call your shit wired tight, your emotional shit wired tight, because you're in a tough situation.
Yeah.
And if you stop your rhythm, and like even between the shots, you've got to breathe. Breathe and keep present. And Cam Young with Dr. Brett McCabe is saying where you are aware where your feet are and you're looking down. And so it's all these things to keep grounded. Those are the thought disciplines that you have to have. That is, that you need to, so you can stay in the present moment, so you don't get ahead of yourself and say, I need to do this or I must do that, which allows you to perform your key performance markers. You're assessing and you're executing, and that doesn't change. That's the discipline. That's the opportunity. And Chris Reitan did it remarkably well and won himself a big, bloody tournament.
Yeah. Absolutely. Congratulations also to Gino Thickel, who won by 4 at the Mizuho Americas Open. As I like to say, if Nelly Korda is the Batman of the LPGA Tour, Thickel is Robin, because she's right there. She's the closest pursuer. It's in a way like Alcaraz and Sinner on the tennis circuit. Decidedly Korda is in the lead, but there's another rung, and then there's everybody else, and that's Gino. So congrats to her. I did want to move. I thought it was really interesting, and there was a Rich Eisen interview with Brian Rolap, 2 former NFL employees, but talking largely about golf and the plans for the PGA Tour. And there are some really interesting sort of discussion angles I thought for us to unpack. Sure. One of, and I have to say, I've read comments, but I hadn't seen Rolap really be interviewed in great detail like this with someone he's truly comfortable with. And that was sort of evident, and I liked a bunch of things they said. So I guess I would characterize what I want to discuss with my own sense of optimism as to what the fans are in for under his leadership as we look ahead. Like, I'm excited about what they're going to bring. And one of them was there's 2 things he said that I wanted to sort of pick your brain on. One, he said, we just have to keep it simple. Like we work from the fan experience backwards, essentially, is what he said. Like, whatever is good for the fans is what we're going to do. The other thing that he said was, that one of the key virtues of the NFL is they honor the history, but they're not tied to it in the sense of, they're constantly trying to innovate to make the fan experience better. So
they're open-minded.
So quick examples, they changed the kickoff, that historic sort of start to a game, the way it runs has changed. It was the same way for a really long time, and then it got really boring because they would just kick it through the end zone and start on the 20, and like, so what's the point of even doing it? And they innovated, and they've made it a much more exciting way to start a game or post or after a touchdown happens, how to sort of get the game going again. And I just thought that is, in and of itself, if that proves to be true, I think is going to be tremendous for the game. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Rolap is playing his position as new CEO or leader. He still, now keep in mind, he has to report to the board. He is not the boss. The board is the boss. He reports to the board and has a team underneath him. Yeah. I like how he's going about his business. He's just sitting back, all ears, saying the very few things that, we're trying to keep it simple. Everyone loves that saying, this, let's keep it simple. The more simple it is, the better. I think, so he's doing that. He's talking, and I think he's, this past weekend when he talked about how they're going to implement the new players' social media restrictions. It's not the plan, restrictions. They're still restricted, but they're open-minded enough to open that up. Yeah. And I think that, and you'll think that's smart. He isn't kind of, saying this is the way it's going to be, but they're opening it up, and I think we need some time to digest it. But the players, from what I understand, they can use 6 shots from the broadcast per round. They can monetize content from practice rounds and pro-ams, which I think is good, and they can highlight their highlight freedom that they get is now they can use 120 minutes of highlights to go to YouTube. That's up from 60 minutes.
Right.
So okay, we see where this is going, and then also access to archive footage from the player. So this is opening it up a bit. I think it's really important to do so. I think, with YouTube and how the future, the PGA Tour has to kind of go down this alley. We have a rogue guy named Bryson DeChambeau who is leading the direction in YouTube, and is just making a gazillion dollars. He's playing a little bit of silly buggers with Brian Rolap in the PGA Tour. I think he with his negotiating tactics that that type of thing. But I think Brian Rolap will handle that situation really well, because I don't know because of recent history, what's going on with the LIV players coming back. You don't want Bryson DeChambeau painting himself into the corner. We'd rather have Bryson DeChambeau on the PGA Tour. And I love the fact that Rolap is saying, there's no question about it. He says the best players need to be playing together on a more consistent basis. So that's the future of the PGA Tour, and I think it's a healthy one.
I thought in tandem with that, with those social media changes, he cited, so it's not just random. There's an evidentiary basis for what he's doing. He said, look, post-COVID golf is up 39% in terms of participation, which is an extraordinary number. But not only that, the vast majority of those people are young. And where do they consume their content? So we need to be there at a level and scale that meets the moment. The other thing he said, which I thought was really interesting, which I did not know, it's probably posted somewhere else, but they've hired NFL Films to tell the stories after the events. So if you think about, after every football game, they're good. The NFL Films people turn what happened this week in the NFL into a great story within 2 days.
That I love.
And
How about...
to me, it's like, hallelujah. They finally have embraced storytelling in a way that sort of meets the moment. You know? And I think, and is going to be so fantastic for what we see. And he started citing all these great examples, like Chris Gotterup was really foul-mouthed and his mom's mad at him. So, but he's like, you're saying all the stuff everybody else says when they're golfing. It's no big deal. It's just fantastic. So that's part of the reason I'm so excited.
Well, how about back in let's steal for the page in the past, when the NFL highlights had the voice of God? Do you remember? In the 80s and 70s? I can't remember that guy. That guy apparently who had this baritone voice, and
voice,
we talk about Dick Butkus running through the line, and and I'm going, oh my God, that makes your hair stand up. It's so fantastic. He was a homeless person. Apparently the story goes, and then he became NFL's the voice of God when showing these short clips.
Amazing.
If we could, if the PGA Tour could, and I highly ask our listeners to Google and go into YouTube and get the voice of God when Earl Campbell was running the ball from the Houston Oilers through the line and going through linebackers. I mean, these were some of the most entertaining short clips you can imagine in the NFL football.
Sure. So very excited about that. The other thing you mentioned, which I thought was really interesting, was, and I think, again, sort of harbinger of what we can expect, is the interest in match play as a format. And I think what struck me after I heard that was, okay, that, it has, other than sort of major events like Ryder Cup, match play has not performed well. And we talked about this previously. But to me, what it does lend itself really well to is this idea of storytelling. Like, I think when you can unpack the head-to-head aspect and hear, what each player is thinking about doing, all that within a short window after the event happens, I think what we'll find is it generates a sense of rivalry at times, a sense of context and color and fun, and all good things for the fan. So I think, and I don't know what you personally, I'm a big fan of match play. I think it's a really interesting way to play the game, and I'm super glad that it sounds like they're going to bring it back at a better way.
Yeah, I love match play. I love playing match play. I love how match play allows for the underdog to have a perspective.
Any given Sunday in golf.
That's right, exactly.
Right?
But because it is, it gives the underdog a kind of an inside edge. Typically, as a tour event, all the top players beat themselves up, and then it leads to the top 4 people. No one's ever
the 32nd
heard of.
guy is playing the 19th guy.
But I would like to. My way of thinking is adopting it to kind of like, okay, the tour finals. You know, like in football and baseball and hockey, it's it's kind of match play. You play them, and even though they may have 7 games, so in football you beat them, you move on no matter what. I like that. People like that. But we got to find a way so that when the upside down triangle filters down, that you're going to get the top 4 guys. Top 4 guys in the 2 rounds to go, and I think it should be a combination of medal play, and then have this massive $30 million purse for the winner, and there's the final 4. So it's increasing the chances that for them to be the top players that face each other. We wanted a Tiger Phil outcome. Never did it happen.
No.
That's the problem with match play.
It is. But I would argue it is in part because they've just never been great at telling the stories of those other players. And I think with, we'll agree to sort of quasi disagree on this, but I just feel like there's going to be great stories.
The brand value of the players that are there are kind of like, okay, if they're perceived to be a Corn Ferry type tour, which a lot of those are in there, they don't even get a chance to watch it. They don't even want to watch it. They turn it off because they don't know who they are, and that seems to be a consistent problem with match play. And we got to figure a way around it, because I think the Tour Championship finals, the person who wins the big ones should be in match play.
Well, maybe that's what they do. That would be great. Take the last 30, just have the last 32 and have them play.
No, the last 4. The last 4 are match play, because that way it guarantees the big names. Just the final 4. Yeah. And now it's match play.
Yeah. Okay. But nonetheless, I think just exciting stuff in my view in terms of what's in front of us. I did also want to add. He shared this NFL philosophy, the quote that they have there. If it ain't broke, fix it anyway, which is a Paul Tagliabue quote, and it sort of is notionally around this idea of constantly innovating and improving. Right. And I think that's one of the things that I'm not a big NFL fan, but I appreciate about their approach is every year they change rules, and they've extended, and it could very well as a league sustained itself by still doing things the same old way, which is, very simple converts after a touchdown, which everybody, like, why are you doing that? It's 99 out of 100 go in, but they've changed that, they've changed the kickoffs. They've done more to protect the quarterback. They've done a whole bunch of things because they know that if we make the fans happy with the game, the rest will take care of itself. The money will be there, the support will be there, the engagement will be there. And I think, I'm very excited about what we're going to see in the coming years.
And I think the closer we get to the new season, and keep in mind, God, bloody, the PGA Tour is half over right now. The Masters has come and gone. We got the PGA this week, and then the U.S. Open next month, and it just it all seems to go by so fast. And then the end of the season, and I think that once we get into September, Roll App will start kind of having a bigger presence and so forth, and more established and announcing. I'm, very interested to see if there is any, we talked about earlier, of any franchise possibilities. With these golf tournaments, see. And if there are, they're keeping it, very classified. There's nothing being leaked out from a news perspective, but I'm fascinated to see if that's going to get traction. Yeah.
So on that note, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come right back. I'm going to put Richard on the spot, ask him a few quiz questions that I've had boiling in my mind. I think it'll be a little fun. A little bit of a forward look at the PGA Championship this week. We'll talk a little bit about Mind Track, and then we'll wrap it up. So we'll be right back.
This episode of Tough Lies is brought to you by Truist AI Yardage Intelligence. Most golfers use GPS. Smart golfers use data. Truist pairs high-resolution course mapping with AI-powered shot strategy. Through a mobile app that knows exactly where you are on the course, current wind conditions, elevation change, and most importantly, your shot tendencies. It doesn't just tell you the number, it recommends the club, the target, even the smart miss. All you have to do is execute. Truist AI Yardage Intelligence, because strategy should be automatic, pressure is not.
Welcome back, everybody. Tough Lies, the Golfers Podcast. So great to be with you and my friend Richard Sokol. Did want to circle back for a moment or two on the Mind Track moment. Self-belief, freedom, walking the gauntlet. There any sort of final thoughts on that you want to bring to the discussion today?
Yes, it's constantly the thoughts that run through your mind. As I talk to all, or try to, when I speak to all aspiring young players, it's not their golf swing that's going to determine whether they're going to be a great player or a PGA Tour player or not. And it's their minds, it's their thoughts. So when you get in those situations where high pressure and you have to walk the gauntlet, so we talked about if you're on the PGA Tour, it's in the final groups. But if it's in your club championship, you have to, and how you play, if you catch yourself and have the awareness that you're getting health, and that's I need to make this number, or I need to do this, or I need to hit the fairway, I need to do this. That is an awareness that you're projecting forward and you're disrupting your ability to be present. So breathe. You got to incorporate breathing. If you have a hyperactive mind, try listening to music. Get one of those old Walkmans. I think it's important.
But not disco.
Never disco. It's got to be rock and roll. And because those situations change your perspective. I want to go back to 1992 where the perspective changed for Lisa Walters. Remember Lisa Walters and Don Code Jones? Yeah. So they were aspiring and players on the LPGA. They hadn't learned how to win yet. They haven't broken through that barrier. And then in 1992, Lisa wins in Hawaii. And it was a great win for Canada. It was a big deal. And her very close friend, Don Code Jones, who was a better player than Lisa typically, it inspired her. And she's going, if Lisa can win, then I can win. And Don Code Jones won the next week, also in Hawaii in 92. So
amazing, eh?
What happens in all these times, our perspective is constantly changing, whatever we feed our mind. So if you feed your mind with good stuff, like I'm inspired by what, if I'm Don Code Jones and what Lisa did, my good friend, she won. If she can do it, I can do it. And then it inspired Don Code Jones to, walk the gauntlet, perform well, walk the gauntlet. Her belief system didn't crumble. She stood there with strong, stable confidence and got the job done for her. So those are inspirational moments that walking the gauntlet is all about. And even though we're, most of us, aren't on the PGA Tour anymore, you've got to learn how to walk that gauntlet when it comes to your own performance. Yeah,
love that. Yeah, so it's so powerful. Again, I look back on the discussion with Mike Weir. Everybody in our region, I think, the top players. I was not one of them then. But the ones around, Mike Weir would have been in that group, but he wouldn't have been seen to be anything special.
No.
And I think a lot of them would look at it now and say, man, if I just believed.
Yeah. Mike Weir's perspective is the key performance that allowed him to not only win 8 times on the PGA Tour, but win the Masters.
Yeah. So I want to move from there and spend at least a couple minutes looking ahead next week. We got a major next week, PGA Championship at Aronimink, which is not a course that I'm particularly familiar with, but I did watch a course on YouTube, a video of sort of the golf course, and it really looks like a wonderful test of golf and a beautiful property and a lot of really interesting nuances to the design. So your thoughts on what we should be looking for as the PGA unfolds this week.
Yeah, I've never played Aronimink, but you know that it's in Philadelphia, and it's part of that historic, great architecture from Philadelphia that's 100 years ago.
Yeah.
My close buddy and partner, Armin Sooney, who was on our show, he's a Philly guy. He was a superintendent at Aronimink as well. The 1977 U.S. Amateur was played at Aronimink. It was won by a friend of mine named John Fote, who played for BYU and then played on the PGA Tour, won twice his rookie year in 1978 on the PGA Tour, and then his mind got blown. John's a pretty interesting fellow, pretty intense fellow. A lot of stories of BYU about John Fote, and but a great player in himself, and turned into be a great architect as well. So it's going to be classic. It's tree lined. It's going to be a lot like Quail Hollow, and it's going to be fascinating to see if Rory McIlroy's live and die by the driver is going to allow him to survive this week. So if he's on his game, we get to watch that all over again. Looking forward to it. And who am I picking? I'm going to pick, for my victory this week, Matt Fitzpatrick.
Okay, picking Fitzpatrick for this week. That's a good pick. You could just say I'm taking Fitzpatrick and you double your chance for that.
Well, not quite double, but improve. Yeah, perhaps.
Yeah. I have to say I'm unsure who to pick, but if I was gonna go out on a limb, I certainly like the way that Fowler closed out this week, and that putting stroke is just something to behold. And I feel like if he's got, if the rest of his game is sort of in good shape, and he's putting the way he is, I think he's got a very good.
That's a good call. And let's. I just want to spend 1 second on Fowler's putting stroke. He's putting well. And he's back into how he puts, which is a big, long, slow backswing.
Yes.
And it's kind of like he delivers over the top on it, and then the ball comes off beautifully, just like Ben Crenshaw.
Yes.
So this notion that he decelerates. The best players in the world do decelerated impact. If you think you constantly have to accelerate an impact, you're going to hit the ball by the hole quite often. But you're right. I think that Rickie Fowler's putting is back, and I think if he settles down in that situation, he very well could pull it off.
Yeah. So I did want to have some fun before we finish here. I was going to fire some questions at you. So quick answers, except for the last one. We can go on an extended one, but I thought this just might be fun from my part. So here we go. So no name for the quiz, just a quiz from yours truly to Richard. I know you have the book coming out, and I don't know if some of this is mentioned, but I wanted to ask you these questions. Okay, so first, if you could redo a single shot or a tournament from your career, what would you rewind the clock and redo?
One single shot?
Sure.
Okay. The first thing that comes to mind is the bunker shot that I had to extract out of the road hole on the old course in the Dunhill Cup match between Canada and the United States. Have I told you this story?
No.
Okay, so this is the story. So as you know, that road bunker, and I'm three shots up on O'Meara, playing the second to last hole in the old course, Canada versus the United States. I'm 3 shots up on O'Meara. Ray Floyd beat Dan Halderson. Dave Barr beat Lanny Watkins, and I'm playing in the third match, and I'm 3 up on O'Meara, and I hit it into the road bunker. And I'm a pretty good bunker. Now, my strategy should have been, in hindsight, to play it out sideways, get it up, and take my chances. But I've always considered myself an excellent bunker, and I said, I'm going to end this right here. So I hit the best shot I possibly could. I couldn't hit any better. And it clips the top edge of the bunker, pops up, and comes right down in my feet print up. Now I'm trying to hit it into the middle of the green, the middle of the bunker, just so I can get it outside. I don't get out of the bunker. It takes me 3 or 4 shots. I make an 8 on the hole. And I blow the round, and then as I'm coming out of the bunker, I made a mess because I'm in there hacking it out and trying to come out sideways, and the ball's getting into my feet print, and I don't get out of it. And then as I'm pulling out, it was being on BBC. The great Ben Wright was saying, I'm making such a mess in the bunker. His comments were, yes, it looks as though a couple of Shetland ponies have been mating in there. So I blew it. I blow the shot. I feel like crap. And I let my country down. I let my teammates down. And Canada lost to the United States, which would have been a great upset for the Dunhill Cup.
Sure.
So if I had it all over again, I would have hit it out sideways and not gone at the pin to end the shot. So that's my long version of and story of the Dunhill Cup.
Yeah. Most underrated player from your era on tour?
Oh gosh, this is calling into memories. Underrated?
Underrated. Sort
Underrated.
of like was just a superior golfer, but for whatever reason we don't sort of see them as such.
Ken Green was such a misunderstood
what a great
person.
Yeah, Ken Green, sure.
He was a remarkable ball striker, and he was fearless.
Yeah.
I don't know if you read his book, but he has
No,
a story.
I should.
It was just, he has a horrible life story where he was been abused.
Right.
Physically abused by his father and so forth. And then he got into that car accident. Mm-hmm. And, he was always a troubled guy. He was bizarre. He was half crazy,
known for temper tantrums.
How about the story from, he took the courtesy car at the Canadian Open and dropped it off at the airport in Detroit.
Yeah.
You can pick up the courtesy car in Detroit arrivals. Seriously. But anyway, Ken Green, if you clear everything aside, his ball striking ability was remarkable.
Okay, great. Next question. Did you ever call someone for cheating during a round of golf on the pro or even the top amateur? And if so, what was the...
No, I did not ever call anyone for cheating, as if I saw it, I would. I pulled aside a player, a young Pat Perez.
Oh, really?
In a Corn Ferry Tour event in Idaho. I'm playing with him, and he was a top player, and I was a top player, and we're playing. And Pat Perez, it's in the book. I tell the story in the book. So Pat Perez is there, and Pat Perez, he has a foul mouth, and it's loud. And we play in Boise, Idaho, at the Corn Ferry tournament, a very intimate, close golf course. The tees are right beside the ropes, beside the cart paths for people there. And Pat Perez was constantly, he's got a real foul mouth, and I have no problem with any player. I've got a foul mouth just like everyone else, but I do have a governor on it, and I know when to say it and when not to say it, and particularly not say it around women and children and so forth. So he didn't have that filter. So after the round, I pulled him aside. Said, Pat, I need to have a little chat with you, because the policies are policed by the veteran players, and he was a rookie. He wasn't on the PGA Tour. So I pulled him aside, and his eyes are lit. He said, I need to speak with you. He says, hey, I think you're a great player. I think you're going to do great on the PGA Tour when you get there. He says, but you got to do something about your foul language, because, and I don't care about your foul language, and I don't know if anyone's made an official complaint yet, but if you don't clean it up, I'm going to make an official complaint. It wasn't a breach of penalties. Right. But he was going to be fined by it if someone makes a complaint. And so I don't know I don't think it really impacted him. But being the senior player and trying to enforce kind of the PGA Tour profession and conduct of a professional, I pulled him aside and ripped him a new one very nicely. And I'm not sure if he appreciated it yet or not. So whatever, we'll find out when the book comes out.
All right, next question, and then one final one. So this second last question: biggest ladies' man from your time on tour?
Oh, there's no doubt about that, and that is Jim Nelford.
Oh wow, no way.
Jim,
okay.
Oh yeah.
Really?
Gosh, yeah. It's in the book. I tell the story.
Okay.
Jim was he had a little too much focus of off the golf course, entertainment, but Fuzzy Zeller, Hubert Green were so jealous of Jim Nelford.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. And in the story, at the Phoenix Open waste management event at the Bird's Nest, where it becomes a big party, and it used to be at the Phoenix Open before they moved over to TPC Scottsdale. Right. I tell the story in the book how Jim Nelford, myself, and Gary McCord went into the Bird's Nest on a Friday night, and this middle-aged cougar, how she stalked Nelford, and I'm watching this whole thing unfold, and Nelford doesn't know about it, and so the story goes on, and you're going to have to buy the book in order to see how she wanted her autograph and how that story unfolded. But without a doubt, Jim Nelford was the man in my era of the PGA Tour.
There we go. Love it. Okay, last one is the best story not in the book. To the extent that you can tell it. If there's a story that comes to mind that you just thought, comes to mind, I either wish you had now in retrospect that it's published, or something that you just didn't feel like it was a fit.
Well, the most risque thing I wrote in the book, and I had to kind of filter it through my wife, and she said to me, there isn't anything in the book that I'm going to, not like, right? And I said, no, you're okay. And I told her the Nelford story, and she goes, don't really like it, but, okay. But, I think the good one, or the real interesting one in the book, is this story. And I was a little reluctant to write about it because of this guy named Jim King, who, I think I may have told you that story, Colin?
I think so, yeah, but tell it for the audience.
Yeah, sure. Jim King was, he played on the PGA Tour. He came in through the PGA of America. He was a tough guy. He was in the 82nd Airborne, fought in Korea, was a boxer, played football for Western Illinois, and he was considered to be, rumors had it, that he was a leg breaker, a collector.
Oh, wow.
And so he was, and I had a run-in with him playing a practice round for Monday qualifying at Fort Lauderdale at the Inverary Classic. And then Lee Trevino tells the story about his situation with Jim King. Did I tell you? I told you the story? Okay, so this is the story. So and this is from Lee Trevino to me. It's in the book. Okay. And in 1967, Lee Trevino finishes 45th on the money list, and on the PGA Tour, and so makes him exempt in 1968. So he gets to Doral, and he gets this knock at the door. And keep in mind, this is Trevino telling me this story. He opens the door, and it's Jim King. And Leach is, he's this big son of a bitch at the door. And Jim King says, "Hey, I hear you're pretty good." And and Trevino, who's a very street smart savvy, and he tells me, he said, back in those days, he used to travel with a handgun. It was legal to travel with a gun. He says he kept it with him all the time. Yeah. It was in his golf bag, and it was in his hotel room. He'd have it on the nightstand beside his bed. Yeah. So Jim King, Trevino didn't feel like any threat whatsoever. Mm-hmm. He says, come on in. So he's sitting around. Jim King sits at the edge of his bed, and they start talking. Well, Jim King's looking around like this in the room, and he's talking to Trevino, and he notices this pistol on the nightstand of the bed. And Jim King says to Trevino, he goes, "Is that yours?" And Trevino goes, "Yes, that's mine." He goes, "What do you need that for?" And Trevino says to him, he says, "Well, if I get in a jam with a guy your size, this gives me a better chance." And then Trevino says, after that meeting, Jim King became my bodyguard.
No way.
So that's the story in the book, the chapter of my run-in with Jim King. And it scared, when my run-in which was a Sunday of the practice round, scared the bloody Jesus out of me. Oh, wow. He scared the crap out of me. So anyway, that's the story.
Love it. Well, a great way to conclude the show. Again, thanks to all for listening. I would be remiss if we didn't mention once again, Zoology is coming out May 19th. It is going to be a can't miss read. If you've been enjoying the podcast, if you've been enjoying these discussions, you absolutely have to grab that book. There's going to be so much wonderful stuff in it, and all the best, of course, to you, Richard, as you pursue that. And I think it's as a through line for what we've been talking about all the way along is great stories, and I am quite certain that this book is going to be packed full of them. So congratulations again.
I appreciate your kind words, Colin. Thank you.
Yeah. So on that note, we're going to wrap it up for this edition of Tough Flies, the Golfers Podcast. At Tough Flies Podcast on Instagram, toughfliespodcast.transistor.fm. Have a great week, everybody, and we'll look forward to talking to you again.
Join us next week on the Golfers Podcast with Richard Zopel and Colin McIlroy.